When you think of Michigan's Upper Peninsula, you may think of untouched forest, miles of lakeshore, and beer? That's right, beer. And we're not just talking about domestics or the Great American Lagers. Craft breweries have taken the nation by storm, and the UP is no exception. The Michigan craft beer industry grew by 20% in 2012 alone. A total of 12 breweries call the UP home, and that number just keeps rising. You can find them as far east as Sault Ste. Marie and as far north as Copper Harbor. It's safe to say for Michigan's craft beer fans, the glass isn't just half full, it's overflowing. Today, we travel to what is known as the UP's beer capital to take a look at one of the area's newest additions, the Ordock Brewing Company.
We sort of like to use modern equipment and traditional techniques to make original beers. So we make a lot of beers to style. And a lot of breweries make beers to style, but they use a specific type of production method and use that as a blanket. We actually use the methods that are the tradition of the style. For instance, our Belgian wit beers, we do a couple different ones throughout the year because that's just a really approachable, delicious, authentic style of beer. We actually do a cereal mash with raw grains, for instance, because that's appropriate for the style. We don't take a blanket approach, so our beers can be distinct from one another and hopefully from other breweries because of that. I think we've done about just over 900 barrels. We hope to in this calendar year, so now that we got that partial year out, from the beginning of January to the end of this year, we'll probably do about 1,200 to 1,300, somewhere in between there, barrels. I think in our case, it's great to be in the UP, and I feel like Marquette is downtown, if you will, to a really large area. And that's not to knock Houghton or Escanaba. Those are great places I've been to and lived in. But Marquette actually seems to be located a little bit more centrally, obviously. I mean, there's no better place, in my opinion, for us to do this. Our customer base is it's exactly what we want, which is really diverse. We have a lot of college students come. We have a lot of middle-aged professionals, young professionals. We try to cover the bases with our beer to make sure there's something for everyone. We don't go as far as making something like Bud Light, even though people come and ask what's like Bud Light. But we do make lighter beers like Belgian Wit, like American Wheat. But at the same time, we make hoppy beers, we make dark beers, we make really robust Belgian ales. So we try to get a diverse crowd by having a diverse range of beers. Another reason why Marquette is such a great place is we have Lake Superior water. One thing that's extremely important to the beer is the water. And here, because we have Lake Superior water, we can turn that water into water like any water in the world with the right mineral additions. And we can basically make the beers appropriately with that water. Our goal right now is to catch up with distribution. So basically, we have been behind since the day we opened. What happened was, we only had our downstairs tasting room open. And then we opened the upstairs. And then basically in one weekend, in our grand opening weekend, we went from 10 beers to 6 beers because we just were able to sell so much beer. We didn't catch up until we added 2 more tanks that were double size. But then we started distributing locally draft beer. And that knocked us back down. And we've, for the most part, been able to just barely keep up with our distributors' orders. Our next goal after that is also going to be more tanks because we would like to bottle and start to distribute in the bottle. So our immediate goals are more capacity to keep up and then more capacity to expand our products in the marketplace. Marquette has received us really well, so well that we can't keep up, which is, it's really a great place to be. it's a little bit stressful at times, but it's really a great place to be. So, when I say it's a great place to be, I mean this is a great place to be. I also mean that our customers are making our situation a great place to be.
The folks at the Ordock aspire to be a staple in the UP's microbrewing community, and from the looks of it, they're well on their way. Next, we travel north to Houghton to visit what is arguably the most successful microbrewery in Upper Michigan. The Keweenaw Brewing Company, or KBC as their patrons call it, currently distributes throughout the Upper Peninsula and Wisconsin. Their success, however, was not necessarily their owner's intent when they first got into the craft beer industry.
Well, my partner and I, Dick Gray, we were in the oil business together for some 20 years in Denver. We both worked for Amoco for a number of years and then with a smaller company for 4 or 5 years after that. The two of us spent a lot of time on the other side of the bar drinking microbrews in Denver. So for about 10 years, we would meet probably 3 or 4 times a week and just have a couple pints. When the oil career looked like it had a chance to move on to something else, Dick invited me to come up and look at the UP. This was in 2003, the summer of 2003, and my wife and I came up and we fell in love with the area too. Dick and his wife had both gone to school up here and always wanted to move back. So at 50 years old, we had an opportunity to come up here, and there was a niche to be filled up here. The closest other microbrewery was probably 300 miles away, so that our hometown advantage had a pretty good size radius for us. We both like drinking beer. We're both engineers by trade, so moving to the brewing industry was still moving fluids, just like the oil business. So 2003, we bought a building in downtown Houghton and some brewery equipment. We did 400 barrels in 2004. We've since grown. Here we are in 2012. We did slightly over 8,000 barrels. The beers that Dick and I like to drink are what's known as session beers, generally at the lighter end in both alcohol and hops in the microbrew industry at large, so that you can sit and have 2 or 3 or 4 with your friends. I'd say our biggest problem was that we hadn't anticipated the popularity of our beer, and we quickly outgrew what we planned on using for 4 or 5 years to brew the beer, and we had to quickly find something else. Well, as I said, we started at 400. The following year we were at 1,000 barrels, and that was about the capacity of our system downtown, and it took us a while to get up here. So for 2 years we sort of stagnated in our growth. When we opened in South Range, it took off again, and we've been growing about 25% a year since then, up to where we are now, and we anticipate doing that for another several years at least. We also came out in cans, which early on was a little bit of a struggle. The cans had somewhat of a stigma attached to them, but now as more and more brewers are going to them, it's an easier sell. But it gave us a niche for the first 4 or 5 years that nobody else was there that we could fill. All those that wanted to take beer on boats and fishing out to the beach and hiking that didn't want to revert back to the great American lagers, they had something they could choose. Being in the UP it does impact our business a little bit. It's a little more expensive to get supplies and equipment up here. It's a little more expensive to ship things out again. But I think that's more than balanced by the location that we're in. As my partner and I, this is, you might say a semi-retirement career for the two of us, and this is a wonderful place to live. And so we put up with those drawbacks of being so far away from the populated world, but it's well worth it. I think one other thing about our popularity, again, I go back to the Michigan Tech kids. Our brew pub our tap room is very popular with them. And so when those young budding engineers go out in the real world with their high-paying jobs, they think of our beer when they think of the good times, and they tell all their friends. And I attribute a lot of our growth to that. We're a small company. We've got, I think, 7 employees up here in South Range that are doing the work of brewing and getting it out the door. And we're sort of a small, happy family, and we like to keep it that way. As we get, slow growth over the years, we don't want to be jumping the way some of the other brewers are, because they're in the business to make lots of money, and we're in the business to make beer and have fun. We're going to grow because there are people out there that still want our beer and can't get it. But we're going to keep having fun and grow at our own pace. we're thrilled with the UP up here. The way everybody took to our beer was incredible. You know, both here in Houghton and Marquette as well. You know, I know Marquette, it's hard to go into a place that doesn't have our beer anymore. And that's, you know, I find that particularly gratifying, that I can drive for 2 hours, I can drive for 8 or 9 hours, and there's something I made on the shelf. And people seem to enjoy it. So that's what makes it fun, is people enjoy what we're doing.
People want beer, and in the UP, there's plenty to choose from. With both supply and demand continually rising, it's safe to say the craft beer industry isn't going anywhere but up. So next time you're in the area and looking to try something new, stop into the local pub and see what's brewing.